Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The Syrian government has denied bombing civilians as its ally Russia vowed to carry on targeting rebel-held areas in Aleppo. Syria's UN envoy al-Jafari laughed off the accusations, instead blaming terrorists for the civilian deaths. Syria's strong denial followed a warning from the United States Secretary of State John Kerry, who said that given the latest violence, America was on the verge of stopping talks with Russia altogether over Syria.
And I think that the bombing of Aleppo right now is inexcusable. It's beyond any, beyond the pale of any notion of strategic or otherwise. It's indiscriminate. It is. They took out a hospital last night. I think 400 civilians have been killed in the last 8 days. 100 of them are children. And we've made it crystal clear to them that under those kinds of circumstances, it is not possible to be cooperating, and we need to see a change.
And at the same time, tens of thousands of Syrian refugees are stranded in a no-man's land on the Jordan-Syrian border. Aid workers believe more than 75,000 people are trapped in the desert with very little food and water. Aid agencies haven't been able to get through, and Jordan won't let the refugees cross out of Syria. The Jordanian government tells Channel 4 News it's working on a plan to set up aid distribution points, but cannot say yet when that will happen. The makeshift camp is in Rukban, a desert area known as the Berm after the large sand wall which divides the countries. This programme has obtained footage filmed by refugees showing the desperate conditions, as Diana Magnay now reports.
These piles of stones the children weave through, lugging precious and scarce water, are graves. A makeshift burial ground in a bare patch of desert, a rare glimpse of the no-man's land sandwiched between Syria and the border crossings of Rukban and Hadalat in northeastern Jordan. Home to a forlorn but growing collection of tents battered by the desert wind, which shelter thousands of would-be refugees fleeing the chaos in Syria, but who Jordan won't let in. There's no shade here, there's no vegetation, there's nothing to eat, but there is desperate need.
أخي شو مرضوا؟ شلل دماغي ومرضان مصارينا وهاي ومرشح لا بأدوية لا بأكل لا بشيء تجيب له بده فوط وبده كل شيء ما بي احنا بمخيم رقبان وكيدنا شتوية شوف شلون عم يموت هذا هو.
You can see from these satellite images how much the camp has grown since last December. Syrian refugees fleeing Deir ez-Zor, Raqqa and the area around Palmyra. There are now around 75,000 trapped in what's known as the Berm, a man-made defensive ridge of sand along the border designed to keep tanks and people out. And more arrive in from Syria each day. But there's no way in for aid workers or journalists. We were sent these videos by a Syrian refugee inside the camp. This lady tells him she arrived 8 months ago.
دزونا اطعمونا وانا نريد نهاجر وانا نقدر نروح ترى قمنا الجوع انا عندي 80 عندي 30 بني ادم ارمل ويتامى عندي ما ادري ايش.
There used to be aid coming in at least. This was last May when the humanitarian agencies still had access. They could bring in water for tens of thousands of thirsty mouths. Everything that a people with nothing in a city built on dust might need. And people could still pass through the border. Even though they were tightly screened, there were still buses laid on to take people through, to add to the 650,000 Syrian refugees already inside Jordan. Then in June, a suicide car bomb killed 6 Jordanian border guards near the camp at Rukban. Already concerned at the proximity of ISIS, Jordan closed its northern border and shut down access to the camps. In August, the government granted the World Food Programme permission to make a one-off delivery, winched in via crane over the berm. But those supplies lasted just a month. This week, these two lost their son, 26-year-old Omar. They don't even know what had made him so ill.
مات ابني من قدامي يا خيي وما لقيت شيء أسع فيه، ما لقيت شيء أسع فيه. وصار بالأول على بنية تسهيل ومراجع، وبالتالي صار من يقول أو إطلاق الدم يسوح هيك بين يدي. يا عبيد الله وين بدي أروح؟ وين بدي لا بي غذاء لا بي أكل لا بي شرب، ابني عم يراجع دم، منين بدي أداويه؟ منين بدي أسويه؟ ما شفت يا خيي على أبو كيس السرون مي شو بدي يسوي؟
Then there's Fatima, who also died this week. She'd been sick for 2 years. A new and tiny grave made up for her in the sand.
We know that there are 450 pregnant women there that we saw when we were there who don't have access to medical care. They haven't had any food since early August, and the food drop ran out. So the amount of food that they were given ran out in early September. It's a humanitarian emergency, and it's not getting any better.
And so is faraway phone calls between UN aid agencies and Jordan's government to try and hammer out a solution to set up aid distribution points, which the government says may happen soon. The rhythm of daily life here goes on. An inhospitable desert playground as the autumn nights set in.
Diana Magnay reporting there.
I've been getting away with it all my life.